Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. Today with us is Teresa Szczurek. Teresa is very accomplished, had a very full career, mostly in tech, and she's CEO of Technology and Management Solutions LLC. We're going to talk about taking a company from 0 to 40 million, which is quite impressive feat, and a lot of things because you'll see there's a lot of content there. She's been CIO for the state of Colorado. She's trustee and chair at Western Colorado University, board director at Radish Systems. So a lot to cover today in a short 21 minutes. This podcast is brought to you by my podcasting company. It's called podbuyer.com. If you want to start scale, be invited to podcasts like this one. You can go to podbuyer.com to monetize podcasting. Teresa, welcome to the pod. Can you tell us a bit more about yourself and about what you're up to nowadays?
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be here with you, Charles. Yes, so I am a business growth and innovation strategist. I love to help organizations and leaders reach new heights. You know, I'm out here in Boulder, Colorado, although I serve companies around the world. And so we like to climb mountains out here. And so love to use the entrepreneurial spirit to help organizations. And my latest company, Radish 2.0, you mentioned 0 to 40 million. That was my first Radish, which I can tell you about if you like.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead with that one. Tell us about like your early career and the highlights of it so far.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, I started off as an engineer with Bell Laboratories and explored bringing new technology out to the world and moved from the technical engineering side to product line management with AT&T, bringing these telecommunications business solutions out to world markets. And I decided if I was going to work this hard, rather than being with the biggest company in the world, which was wonderful, but I wanted a piece of the action. So that was when I left the big company where I was climbing the corporate ladder to pursue what I called the business plan. And I had a few side things between the career plan of climbing the corporate ladder to the business plan. I finished my MBA and PhD in business. But yeah, I pursued this entrepreneurial dream and knew we wanted to do something. And I had just handed in my PhD dissertation at the University of Colorado, and my friend and I jumped into his Porsche 911 to drive it across the country to sell it to use as seed money for the company. And we would stop at Pizza Huts and scribble little ideas on napkins. And we didn't have the idea on that trip, but when we came back, Richard A. Davis, who's the rad of Radish, had this experience with a travel agent over the phone who was reading back some information to him that was on her screen. And he knew there was a better way, being a techie from Bell Labs also. So that was the genesis upon starting Radish Communication Systems, Radish 1.0. The goal was to make it as easy to share visual information as it was to make a phone call. And so with that, we invented this technology. It was a venture-backed company. We raised like over $60 million, in terms of our pursuit, working with first friends and family, and then angel investors, and then venture capitalists. I should mention that fundraising, like for any company, is so critical. And it turns out that my business partner and I, Richard, got married. And it was really good that we got married to each other, because the weekend of our wedding, we raised enough money to carry the company for another 6 months. So, you really have to pay the price, but it was definitely worth it.
Wow. And how do you run a business with your significant other without negatively impacting the relationship?
Well, it's a great question, and it is difficult, because it takes over your life. It becomes your baby. It was our baby. And we tried to do things like separate, and have certain times that were just personal. But we knew that we had common goals. And, that's where we started the company in terms of integrity. It was our most important goal, innovation. And so with these common goals, we, ended up being able to pursue things, but we tried to have some separation. And, the venture capitalists said to us, the most difficult thing for you will be, managing, both your relationship and the company.
Yes. Raising capital, how did you convince VCs to hand you money without, I believe you didn't have the track record at that time. So how did you do on that level?
Well, raising money is a challenge. And I must say, back then, this was the early 90s, it was even more difficult for women to raise tech money. Even though I had all of the qualifications. And so for this first company, we brought in a CEO. Rather than being CEO of that company, I became COO and learned a lot from, and that he had some experience and credentials and credibility. And so together with the experience we had from Bell Labs and the fact that we had a great idea and we had some colleagues, it matters who you know. And so some of the people that we knew from the entrepreneurial community in Boulder, vouched for us, and they took a risk and it paid off.
It did. Throughout your career, you've been in the startup world and you went in the public world or the public administration world. What
Yes.
Difference have you seen there, and how did you bring the startup baggage in the public administration world?
Well, after we sold our first Radish, we went on and, did a second Radish, but I ended up hearing Governor Polis here in Colorado, right after he was elected, on the radio asking for good people to apply. And so I ended up applying, and I became his first chief information officer. And for the state, $33 billion state where I was managing 1,000 people and a $400 million budget. Now, what I did, and he's an entrepreneur himself, and I think that's one of the reasons he hired me, was he wanted me to bring this entrepreneurial approach. I ended up setting up an incubator within the state for new emerging technology. And that worked well because when the pandemic hit, one of the technologies I brought in, which was a disruptive call center technology from Amazon, was we were able to use and in a couple of weeks set up 9 new call centers. The other thing I did was I brought in the value of innovation. We had in the Office of Information Technology solid values, but I realized a hidden value that we had not really publicized was innovation. And so I organized our vision, mission, and values around innovation. I set up that incubator, and we actually set up the digital service, which was modeled after the US digital service, which brought in a group of people from the private sector to work in the public sector. Now, I found the people in government were so committed, loyal, hardworking, and innovative. I think they get sometimes a bad rap, that people think that people in government, are, slow or innovative. It's not true. People in government are so creative and innovative. They just need to be given permission to explore that. And that's what I did.
Wow. Yeah, and I've heard that before, it's not all the public workers that, are bureaucratic and lazy and so forth. So in your role as a CIO of the state of Colorado, I think you really brought your startup game there, because I see keywords like NPS and points and percentages and numbers. You were there for 1 month, 1 year and 9 months.
Yes.
What did you learn there, and what did you accomplish precisely?
Well, I learned that it was, and we know this, it's so important to work with others. Alone, you can't really do much. And so my top goal was to improve customer delight. As the Office of Information Technology, we had 17 different agencies we were working with and collaborating with. And so first thing I did was meet with the executive directors of each of those agencies and build a relationship and explain to them that we wanted to work together and serve. And this helped. In the matter of the first year, we used the Net Promoter Score as a measure of customer satisfaction, and we were able to raise it by 13 points in a short amount of time. So starts with having this wildly important, what I call passionate purpose of customer delight, and then setting a clear goal. Number one was building this customer satisfaction. Number two was securing a secure Colorado. We hear about cybersecurity risks, and they are big and they're growing. And that's why I bring now to companies that I serve on their boards this cybersecurity and IT expertise. And so we had the state of Colorado, prior to my coming there, a ransomware attack. And fortunately, we had some really good things in place, including having moved a lot of our data into backup into the cloud, and having a great CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, and we didn't end up having to pay ransom. But I knew that if we didn't keep the state secure, we couldn't do anything. We couldn't do any of the operations. And so that became a really top priority. And we ended up increasing our security measure significantly. And luckily, the legislature, this is one of the differences in public versus private entrepreneurial. It's like, where do you get the money? Okay, in the public sector, you have to go to the legislature and they give you the money if you can convince them. But because we had had the ransomware attack, they gave us more money, and we were able to pursue 10 different approaches to make our state more secure. And then the third thing we did was focused on improving digital access anywhere, anytime, so our residents could have access to government services. And this proved to be extremely helpful during the pandemic, because people, couldn't, come in anymore. So having a wildly important, passionate purpose of customer delight, having some clear goals, the three I mentioned, and then working together collaboratively with my team, pursuing what I called our pursuit of passionate purpose.
Wow. And yeah, you have a book of the same title. How did that came about? And did you accomplish the objectives you set for that book?
Well, thanks for asking about Pursuit of Passionate Purpose, which you can go to that website, pursuitofpassionatePurpose.com. After we sold our first Radish, people kept asking me, well, how did you do it? So at first I was going to just write the Radish story. I decided, in my personal story, I decided to broaden it. I did a major research study interviewing 80 people from all walks of life, those who had found their passionate purpose and those who had not. And I interviewed Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great, interviewed entrepreneurs, Mark Plotjes, who was the world marathon champion, and I discerned what I call the Szczurek process. It's a 4-stage process. Find your passion based on knowing who you are, align it with a meaningful purpose, then pursue it with a plan, with the proper people persistently until you make progress. So it's a 4-stage process. I consider it to be the cycle of life, because then you go back and you reconnect with this. And so that's what I have found people, entrepreneurs, do in their personal and professional life, whether or not they know it. And when you pursue this, you can achieve extraordinary results. Ordinary people become extraordinary when their passions are connected with their purpose. And that was what we used at Radish. And that is what I use when I consult and coach with my clients, to help them, connect with that, and then figure out, the obstacles that are there along the way. There always are some. And how do you, say no to some of those obstacles and barriers in order to say yes to the things that are going to help you.
Love that. Nowadays, after having accomplished so much, what are your priorities?
Thank you. That's wonderful. First is, besides just being healthy and happy and living a life with my friends and family, a top goal has to do with Radish Systems. You can go to radishsystems.com. We're growing it in order to bring our innovative voice and visual communications technology out to improve business communications. We're looking for businesses who want to apply this. We're looking for developers and partners. So number one is do good things with Radish Systems. Number two is to find other boards, corporate boards, where I can be of service and make a meaningful difference and use my technology and cybersecurity experience. And then third is to bring out my message on pursuit of passion and purpose. I love to speak. And so, ask me, just like you asked me, Charles, to speak on this podcast. Thank you. I hope others will ask me, and I can use that both in speaking and in my coaching and consulting to help others. I don't plan to retire. I mean, I want to continue to contribute and make a meaningful difference.
And where can people find out more about you? Do you have a website that we can find you at?
Yes, go to TMS, as in Szczurek, world.com, and you can find out more about me and my consulting and board work.
And I'm Charles Cormier, host. CEO Wisdom Podcast.com is where you can find us. That was Teresa Szczurek.